Welcome to She's Got This, the podcast for ambitious women who want to grow and scale their business and use the power of intentional energy direction to design their very best life. I'm your host, Christine Gallagher, award-winning business coach and mindset mentor to female entrepreneurs. If you're ready to own your brilliance while making bank, step into the absolute best version of you, and become a force for positive change in the world, you're in the right place. Let's do it. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. It's Christine Gallagher. You're listening to She's Got This. And today we're talking about discovery calls, AKA get acquainted calls, AKA sales calls. So essentially the calls that you get on with a potential client to see if it's a fit to work together. And so the title of this podcast episode, I was sort of hedging a little bit, not to be cheeky or obtuse, but to let you know that it's not necessarily cut and dry as far as doing discovery calls. So do you need to do discovery calls? Maybe not if you do this. And so that's what we're talking about today. And I will say that there's no judgment here. I completely respect how you view discovery calls. I know some coaches and mentors out there are huge proponents of discovery calls because they actually like to do them. There are people who like to do them. And there are also people that feel that it is necessary to do them for their business, that they want to talk to a potential client to make sure it's a good fit before they sign somebody on, especially for a longer term program or a high ticket program. If you're going to be working with somebody really intimately, it's like, no, I want to talk to that person. So it's all good, whatever you feel or wherever you are. But the reason why I love to talk about this topic and really work with my clients on this, depending on where they're at and how they feel about calls, is because for me, I personally don't want to spend all my time on calls. I consider myself more of an introverted person. My thing is marketing. My thing is mindset. I don't want to sit on calls all day. I have had salespeople in the past do calls for me. I've done them myself. And I've also had times where I don't do them at all. And lately, it's been more so on the side of not doing them at all and doing other things to actually create that connection first so that you don't even need to get on a call. So I'm going to walk through this today and explain how this all works. So what I have found with most of my clients is they are of a similar mindset. They want the option to potentially do discovery calls and know how to do them well, but they don't necessarily want to spend their time doing them all the time because they are in the business of transforming their clients' lives. And that's what they want to focus on. They want to be creating, they want to be serving, they want to be connecting, but they don't necessarily want to do it with long drawn out phone calls because, as we know, sometimes discovery calls can become a actual burden. And one of my past mentors said that they were a expense in your business. And I thought to myself, that makes a lot of sense because you're spending time, you're spending effort, you're spending energy, and you may even be spending money if you are hiring an outside salesperson or sales team. So that's something to keep in mind. But even if you love to do them, you enjoy doing them, you'll reach a point in your business where, from a leverage perspective, you don't want to necessarily be on the phone all the time, having to juggle all of these different calls just to sign on a client, whether that's a lower ticket thing, a higher ticket thing, or anywhere in between. So let's talk about what makes the difference, because what this episode is about what you can do that will do the heavy lifting so that you don't necessarily have to get on a call every single time you want to sign on a client. And it's also an important side note to mention the price level that we're talking about, because low ticket in the industry of coaching and consulting and online business typically means under $2,000, and high ticket is over $2,000. And where you see people, quote, needing to get on the phone is usually in that higher ticket area over 2K, because again, it might be a little bit of harder sell because it is a higher investment. And yes, you may want to talk to the person and they may want to talk to you if they're going to be investing at this level. But be assured that I have, and my clients have signed on clients at price points from 2K to 5K to 10K to 15K to 20K and above, just through email and DMs and PMs and social media. So it is absolutely doable. And let's talk about it. So the bottom line is it comes down to two main things, and that's your messaging and that is your offers. So messaging being anything you're sending out via email or social media typically, and your offers, whether that be group offers, one-on-one offers, coaching, consulting, any kind of package. So we're talking about service-based businesses. And so let's talk first about the offer piece, because that is so crucial and key. Because if your offer is not calling in your soulmate clients, if your offer is not dialed in and nailed down, and if you don't understand your ideal client, then it's going to be really hard to come up with an offer that's going to get them to sign up, right? So we want to think about offers that basically sell themselves. And there are some elements here that go into this. And again, this is because you want to be having the offer itself and the messaging do the heavy lifting, so that you don't need to be getting into all of these conversations, especially the longer drawn out ones. So what makes an offer sell itself? Well, obviously it's getting clear on your who, right? Your soulmate client, that ideal client avatar that you hear about all the time. It's like marketing 101, but you need to be willing to talk to a specific person and narrow to one client for right now. Now, I know there's a lot of multi-passionate entrepreneurs in my audience, and I know there's a lot of people who are a little bit more of the rule breaker type who are like, no, I want, all these different elements to go into who my who is. And there's several different avatars I have, and that's great. But again, if we're talking about nailing an offer, it really is a lot more effective to come from a place of who is that specific person that you are talking to. The other thing about a great offer is that you are using it to establish a gap that's going on, right? So the easiest way to say this is the gap between where they are now and where they want to be. And so how do you actually do that? How do you illustrate that gap, which shows that you understand that they need to cross that gap and they need your help to do it? Well, you start with where they're at right now. Obviously, if they're looking to hire somebody to get this problem solved, they have some sort of pain there. They have some sort of issue there. They have something they want solved. Now, this doesn't have to be like, oh my God, like we have to drive home the pain and we have to twist the knife. Like, I'm not a believer in that necessarily, but it is good marketing sense that we know what it is that they're struggling with. Because again, why else are they going to spend the money with you, right? So having that gap and starting with that pain, and also what is the cost of that pain? Like if they don't make a change in the next, week, next month, very soon, what is the cost of continuing to struggle with that problem or that pain? What's the cost of staying the same as opposed to getting some help with this and overcoming the hurdle? And then your offer also has to really put that stake in the ground, like deliver that result, right? And it's so funny because it sounds very like, well, of course my offer has to deliver a specific result, but you'd be surprised how few people actually have decided they're going to put a stake in the ground and they're going to say, I claim that I can get this result for you, right? Another thing that's really great about an offer is if you are able to do something that's a little contrary in terms of the way that you're addressing the person's struggle and how your solution can solve that struggle. So it's about presenting it in a contrary way, or a way that other people aren't necessarily talking about it, right? So maybe it's a way that people aren't talking about it in your industry, or people who do similar things to you, or maybe it's something that just hasn't been done before. So if there's a way that you can talk about it, that's really great in a way that makes it seem like yours is different. Yours isn't just another of the same thing that they've seen a million times. And then if your offer can actually address the objections itself, that's amazing, right? So when people have those yeah buts, like, yeah, this sounds great, but I've tried that before and it didn't work, or yeah, but you're telling me that I have to do it this way and I really don't like doing it that way, right? So objections, this is like sales 101. You want to answer the yeah, but objections with the offer. And again, you can do it in a way that shows them that like, this is different than what you've tried before. This is different than what you don't like doing. And then also knowing the trigger points of when they need your offer. This isn't always relevant, but there are times that people are naturally looking for the thing that you got. This could be a question of where, this could be a question of when. Maybe there's something that happens during the course of their life, their relationship, their business, whatever it may be, their health, where they're triggered more so than not. And then the last piece of the offer is really having your offer sell itself by pointing to specifics, right? So not just being really sort of vague and like, this is going to bring more happiness to your life, or this is going to make your relationship stronger. What exactly does that mean? What exactly does that look like? A former mentor of mine who was really brilliant with this stuff used to call it getting finger pointy. You have to point the finger at the specific things, not just leave it as vague or sort of like, okay, that sounds nice. That's a nice to have, but that really doesn't tell me about the specific outcome and what it looks like. Because when you are talking about the specific outcome and what it looks like, then you can really paint a picture. And you're showing the person, you're showing the potential client that you understand what's going on with them. And then that client can read that copy or hear that message and they can see themselves in it and they can realize that you understand. And it's like you're stepping into their shoes. So again, the offer is a very powerful piece of how you can get yourself off the phone, because if your offer is constructed in that way, they're going to see that in your messaging, they're going to see that in your copy, and they're going to really have a clear understanding of how you can help and why it's worth the cost or the investment that you're charging. So they don't necessarily need to have a call with you, or maybe they still want to call. By the way, this is an important thing to mention because we're talking about long drawn out calls, but sometimes a connection call is great. And it's not that the person like needs all this convincing on that call. They just want to connect with you. And so it's a shorter call. There's not like stress involved. It's not like, oh my gosh, are they going to buy? Are they going to buy? It's more like, let's just connect because I really like what you're doing. And I really maybe have some follow-up questions, but they're simple. It's not like, prove to me that this is going to work, that kind of thing. So there's a difference there. Connection calls are cool. I like doing those a lot better than a 90-minute sales call that feels really, really exhausting. Okay, so that's the offer piece. Now, the other piece here is the messaging, right? Because clearly, if you have an offer, if you're asking somebody to invest with you, there's some sort of messaging around that you're going to put out there online. Again, this is usually social media or email. And so you want to think about using a framework where you are able to do, again, heavy lifting, just like your offer can do, but in the messages that you're sending out on a regular basis. So I'm a big believer in messaging regularly, and whatever that means to you, that might mean once a month. And I would say it's probably not enough. At least once a week, sometimes 2 to 3 times a week, depending. Again, if you're going to be wanting to get clients online and get people to really see the value you're offering, the more consistent you are, just like anything in life, the better. The more that you're top of mind, the better. And the more that you can use that messaging to really drive home why it's worth it, it's going to be more effective. That's just kind of obvious, right? So what you want to think about in terms of your messaging is you want to think about, how can I show, first of all, that there is a really great solution to their problem, and here's what it is. And again, this is something you can think of as like sort of this, woo, yes, awesome, right? So an example here with what we're talking about that goes to the topic of this podcast would be, sign on 5 new 10K clients without getting on the phone. Awesome, right? Like you want to get them excited about what it is you're promising. And if you notice there was that contrary piece, which is, wow, you mean I don't need to get on the phone with a high ticket client, right? So also in your messaging, you want to give a description of the current struggle that they're going through. But again, you don't need to go super deep and make them feel really bad and twist the knife. As I said, a short description of the present pain in your messaging is fine. But what can really, really drive it home and make it even more effective is where you tell a story that's illustrating what it is that they're struggling with, but also what it is that they want instead. Right. And a lot of times this can come through as like an aha moment for the potential client. They're reading this and they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, you're right. I never thought of it that way before. Or, wow, I now see that there is a way to get beyond this. And hey, it's not something I've tried before. And it's not something that I don't want to do. And let me keep reading. Right. So if you can tell a story that illustrates what's going on between the pain and pleasure, that's really effective. Again, simple example, since we're talking about it. Some people don't want to be on discovery calls all day long. And so you might do a little bit of a description of why it's painful to be doing that. And then tell the story of how they can have a really successful, whatever it is, by not having to get on the phone, right? So having a successful launch, a successful offer, successful program, whatever it might be. And then you're connecting the dots essentially in this process. After you're telling the story that connects and illustrates the pain and the pleasure, you can break it down. Again, this is where an aha comes in. This is where an awareness comes in. You might even think of it as like you're busting assumptions. I really like to bust assumptions in my messaging because it's, again, something they're not used to. They're like, oh, I assumed it was supposed to be this way, but now she's telling me it's this way. And it's like that awareness comes through. And then in the end, you link it back to what they want, right? You don't close it out by, again, staying in that pain place. You want to link it back to what they want, which is, in this case, high ticket clients without spending all day on the phone. And then you give your offer or your call to action. So your messaging, you want to actually sell with your messaging. Surprise, surprise, right? All your messages don't have to sell, because sometimes you're not selling something. Sometimes you're just nurturing, or sometimes you're just really giving people some ahas, and you're doing that for the meantime because maybe you have a launch coming up in a little bit and you're starting to connect the dots to let them know that something's coming. But in a lot of cases, if you have something to offer, make that offer, have that call to action, and utilize that as a way to create more sales. So one of the ways that myself and my clients sell our stuff is through messaging, regular messaging. But if we have a call to action, we can have people reply. So let's just say it's an email. And at the end of the email, we're saying something like, if you're interested in getting X, which could be like the result they want, hit reply and let me know, and I'll send you more details. Right? So you can send the offer at that point after they say, yeah, I want details, but it's also great to have some questions that you use to qualify people. So for example, you might have an offer you're putting out, but you only want the right people. You should always only want the right people. And there's a way to do that by asking some qualifying questions if you have them. So maybe it's a health coaching program. Let's say it's something to do with improving their health, and it has to do with, recipes and getting their cabinets organized so they only have healthy food. So you might have some questions that you want to ask first to make sure that that person is ready and willing to do that. Another example for my business is, do you have X number of people on your email list? Because this offer works best with people who have at least, 300 people on their list. That would be an example of a qualifying question. And then after they answer those questions and they seem to be a fit, what you can do is send them an invitation to your offer. So it's up to you how you do this. Some people love to send people to sales pages, but I think for something especially high ticket, it's good to be sort of personal and intimate and have an invitation letter. It could be a simple PDF or a Google Doc that invites them to take action on the offer. And it really, again, does the heavy lifting. So that letter could be answering objections. It could be describing the offer and the benefits and the outcomes, all of that heavy lifting that, again, will keep you off the phone so much. So lastly, if you are putting offers out there and you're not getting the results that you want, or your soulmate clients aren't showing up, the right people aren't saying yes, that's okay, because sometimes you're going to need to take time to dial in both your offer and your messaging. This is something that I work with my clients on intimately, but just know that you can still make moolah when it's imperfect and you're nailing it and you're dialing it in. So there's always a reason why you're not getting result with your offer. And there's not a lot of reasons either. Either the offer doesn't resonate with the people, or the message doesn't resonate with the people. And usually those are very typical, right? So it doesn't mean necessarily you need to go build your list with a ton of new people, or there aren't people in your current audience. It's probably that your offer or your messaging is just not nailed down yet and you're not clear. Another reason why an offer doesn't work is you're not including urgency. You're not giving them a reason why they need to take action. Another thing that could be happening is that there is some resistance going on with you, right? Are you resisting the changes that you need to make, for one example? Another thing that is really a mindset thing is the misalignment in yourself, right? If your offer is something that you're not that excited about, people are going to pick up on that energy. If you're not completely clear about your offer and what results it provides, people are going to pick up on that, right? So you want to think about what it is that you really want and stay in alignment with your offer, because when you do this, it's really quite magical. Another reason is, of course, not messaging consistently. So messaging 3 times in a row and then disappearing for weeks, right? You want to do messaging several times a week, 3 to 4 times between email and social, and really keep yourself out there and visible. Another reason is you don't have social proof. So you don't have enough testimonials or case studies. You have to be confident about your offer, but it also is really effective to show that other people have gotten results with your offer and with your services and with your help. Another reason why an offer might not fly is that clients aren't really in the place consciously that they need to be in order to take action. So a simple example of this is like the I can't afford it thing, right? So like, what's a mindset that would actually change that, right? What is something that you could share that counters that story, right? And a simple way to say this is you can't not afford it, right? And so you do that in your messaging. And then, of course, not asking for the sale enough, not putting your offers out there, not having calls to action. So you want to think about these reasons and really get curious about it. Are you going into a place in your own self where you are in despair or in shame, or you really know the offer is not right, or you're not excited about it, right? And if you are getting some response to your offers, like get curious about that and be like, what is it about this that got some response? This message really seemed to land with people. Make a note of that and really tap into your higher self and think about asking, what is it that I really think is going on here? Because deep down, I feel like we usually know. What are people saying and what are they really saying underneath that? And so it's about being really honest with yourself and objective and sticking with the facts and not getting so attached. So I hope this is helpful. These are the things that you would need to do in order to sign up clients without discovery calls. And again, me and my clients do this all the time, no matter what the price point. Sometimes it's just a quick DM. Sometimes it's a quick email exchange with an invite letter going back and forth. Sometimes we hop on a quick connection call, but we really don't need to do the long discovery calls anymore once we have these things nailed down.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you could leave me a review on iTunes or share it with someone else who would find it helpful. To stay connected with me, please visit she'sgotclients.com and sign up for my email list at the bottom of the page. Or feel free to share this episode on your Instagram and tag me at Christine G and I'll repost you. I would love to share this with as many people as possible. I love you. Until next time, keep shining your light.